Continuing with the La Excellence series of the Gist of Yojana, November 2022, let's see Chapter 8 Indian Coastal Community and Climate Change. To introduce, most of India's coastal regions are low-lying and densely populated, with nearly 250 million people living within 50 kilometers of the coast. The country has a total of 1,382 offshore islands, comprising 514 islands along the mainland coast and 868 islands in the island territories, Andaman and Nicobar and Lakshadweep. Among the 1,382 offshore islands, 346 islands are inhabited. As per the census data 2011, there are 486 census towns along the coast of India, accounting for a population of 41.7 million population, constituting 20.7 total coastal population. The coastal areas of India experience tropical climates and have diverse geological, geomorphological and ecological setups. India's coast is vulnerable to exponential developmental activities coupled with climate change impacts. The likely scenarios of climate change and associated variability pose the greatest risk to the socio-economic and environmental functioning of the coastal regions. The coastal communities, for their livelihood, face enormous challenges from natural calamities triggered by climate change parameters. Important coastal economic generation activities such as fishing, salt production, agriculture, aquaculture and animal husbandry have been affected by climate change. Let us see the policies to address the impacts of climate change. The Coastal Zone Management Guidelines of India by M.S. Swaminathan emphasize strengthening the coping capacity of coastal communities to face the challenge of sea level rise caused by climate change, as well as frequent tsunamis and cyclones, to protect the life and livelihoods. The Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change, that is MOEFCC, has demarcated the hazard line, which is 100 years written interval of dangers by natural events such as cyclones, tsunamis, floods, storms, waves, shoreline changes and sea level rise due to global warming. The Coastal Regulation Zone Notification of 2019 under the Environment Protection Act 1986 directs to clear the developmental projects in the coastal areas after considering the disaster risks including climate change risks such as SLR and other natural disasters. Sea level rise (SLR). Globally, the rate of sea level rise (SLR) is about 4.5 mm per year. It is projected that SLR risks 10% of the coastal population living in the low-lying coastal region within a 10-meter elevation of mean sea level or MSL. SLR results in a combination of risks in retreat, submersion, erosion and increased vulnerability to extreme marine events. It is one of the prime factors driving the historical shoreline changes and wave climate changes that engulf the land masses with the economically potential physical infrastructures. Coastal communities and other stakeholders are impacted by the loss of land, erosion, flooding, and saltwater intrusion in the coastal aquifers. This leads to the squeezing of settlements, reduction of common property, lands and inland movement of the coastal habitats. The consequences of SLR causes changes in livelihood dependency, ecosystem degradation, reduction in potable water, an increase in the hazards and health ailments, a rise in homelessness and poverty, involuntary migrations, loss of employment, increase in debt. It also increases the conflicts, criminal cases, delinquencies, and inequality, and paves way for human rights violation among the coastal communities. Increased sea surface temperatures. Sea surface temperatures, or SST, is the water temperature close to the ocean's surface. An increase in the sea surface temperature leads to alterations in climate patterns around the world. The SST affects fish migrations, fish physiology, fish breeding, fish recruitment, and habitat loss. It also enhances ocean acidification, salinity, and longshore current patterns that influences primary production and fish stock in the sea. The change of sea surface temperature not only affects the fish stock and biomass, but also influences cyclogenesis, which is the development or strengthening of cyclonic circulation in the atmosphere. As the warm waters could transform the tropical disturbances into cyclones, the tropical disturbances normally become cyclones if the sea surface temperature is more than 26 degrees centigrade. The shoreline changes. The wave energy closer to the shore leads to an increase in the shoreline changes in soft rocks and beaches. Based on the results of the trend analysis, the coastal stretches of India have been classified as stable, accreting, low erosion, medium erosion, and high erosion coasts. Accordingly, the high erosion site, that is HER, is where the erosion is higher than -5 meter per year, and medium erosion is between -2 meter per year and -5 meter per year, and low erosion LER coast if it ranges from -0.5 meter per year to -2 meter per year. The stable coast is where the erosion or accretion rate is within the range of -0.5 meter per year to +0.5 meter per year. The construction of seawalls, groins, training walls, breakwaters, and other protection structures on the shore to reduce the impacts of sea level rise, wave action, and erosion are classified as artificial coasts. The shores with continuous sand deposition are classified as accreting cost or DEP. The shoreline changes cause social and economic effects on the livelihoods, property, recreation and tourism, ecosystem services, resilience and vulnerability. The frequency of cyclones and floods. The coastline has undergone physical changes throughout its geological past due to continuous wave actions, floods, cyclones, earthquakes, tsunamis. Besides cyclones, tidal range, storm period, high tide water level, shoaling waves, river discharge and rainfall driven runoff also contribute to the flooding in the coastal areas. During the 21st century, there has been an increase in the occurrence and severity of flood hazards in India. During the 21st century, definitely there has been an increase in the occurrence of flood hazards in India. Cyclones and floods cause casualties and injuries besides the devastation of coastal infrastructures, road networks, schools, cyclone centers, health centers, houses and other common properties which are livelihood capitals and or assets of coastal communities. Saltwater intrusion. The primary data of the coastal villages in the coastal district indicate that there are saltwater intrusions in the near shore freshwater sources during the summer season, as most people use bore wells and municipal water for drinking and domestic purposes. Over-harvesting of water from the coastal aquifers, sea level rise by the variations in the atmospheric pressures, expansion of summer and melting of ice sheets and glaciers impose additional saline water intrusion. As a result, an aggravated salt water intrusion is expected in many coastal stretches in the near future. High population pressure, intense human activities, inappropriate and indiscriminate landscape alterations, resource use and the absence of proper management practices add to the deterioration of water resources. Saltwater intrusion affects the productivity of horticulture and livestock. Reduction in income and expenditure for potable water reduces the savings of the indigenous communities and increases their debt. The raising groundwater table in the fishing village using sustainable methods may be one way of mitigating the intrusion of salt water in the coastal stretches. Reduction in capture fisheries. Climate change impacts the productivity of fisheries due to an increase in the sea surface temperature, the changing current patterns and upwelling affecting the fish reproductive biology, alteration of habitats and migratory routes. A decrease in the capture fishery influences the per capita income, revenues, wealth and socio-economic status of the fishing community. The conflicts in the fish catch, an increase in poverty, the migration of fishermen, shifting of occupation and an increase in inequality are the consequences on the fishing communities. Let us see the way forward. Poorer households are often less able to adapt and are more vulnerable to tackling the climate change risks. Prioritization of problems due to climate change based on the risk and vulnerability using the Livelihood Vulnerability Index shall support identifying the location-specific problems to mitigate climate change risks. The coastal habitats shall be demarcated and suitable locations for the shelter during the flood, which are the high elevated areas along the coasts shall be identified. In the potential saltwater intrusion areas and drought prone areas, the sites for water tanks in the coastal habitats to mitigate the water scarcity problems due to climate change shall be constructed. The identified suitable evacuation location during the cyclone and flood shall be informed to the coastal communities through awareness creation activities, capacity building activities and mock drills. The fish stock trends and assessments shall be conducted to develop the policies and schemes to replenish the economically important fishery resources with the involvement of the local stakeholders. To reduce captured fishery demand from the natural coastal environment, near-shore cage culture, aquaculture and mariculture activities shall be encouraged with the participation of local communities under the public-private partnership mode.